Checking your Classic 107 weather. Current temperature is still minus 20, and we're expecting it to stay there for most of the day today. A mix of sun and cloud. There's a slight chance of flurries this morning, clearing this afternoon, and again, high of minus 20. Tonight, it's going to be cold. Low of minus 26, wind chill minus 37. All right, that's what we're expecting for the day. So, this weekend, tonight and tomorrow night, the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra presents a concert called An Evening of Masters. It's music of Mozart, Brahms, and Schumann. Their guest conductor is Yaron Traub, native to Israel, one of the most highly regarded conductors in Spain. He is the music director and chief conductor of the Valencia Orchestra. He's been there since 2005. He has also conducted various philharmonic orchestras throughout the world. We've got the Israel Philharmonic, Sydney and Melbourne Symphony Orchestras, Rotterdam Philharmonic, and while he's been conducting, he has conducted some amazing performers. You have the likes of Daniel Barenboim, Gidon Kremer, Emmanuel Pahud, the list goes on and on, Alice Sara Ott, and so many others. And he's in the studio this morning. Good morning, Boker Tov. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Good morning. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You know, just when I met you for the first time when you came in the station, I asked you if it was your first time in Winnipeg, and you said, well, it's first time in Winnipeg. Not only that, it's your first time in...
First time in Canada.
First time
absolutely,
in Canada.
Yeah.
Well, we're honored to have you here in Winnipeg for your first time in Canada.
The honor is all mine. And you know, actually, when I just heard you saying the weather report, and you said it's going to be cold. I just it reminded me that 2 days ago when I came from Spain, from Valencia, I came from plus 25 degrees.
Yeah, a little bit of difference.
So it's quite an amazing difference.
Yeah, well, I guess when you look outside here, it's the different color, I suppose, than you're used to.
That's true. That's true.
So we're going to talk about the concert that you're in town to conduct. We definitely want to talk about that. But you've been surrounded by music your whole life. I mean, right. And one of the things I find kind of intriguing is that your father was probably one of the primary influences. For 30 years, he was the concertmaster with the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra under the baton of Zubin Mehta. So tell us about growing up with a father who was so entrenched in an orchestra, a very world-famous orchestra.
Yeah, that was amazing because, first of all, being able to go to the rehearsals and concerts, it's almost an unconscious experience, you know. It's like being in the rain and it just goes over you. Mm-hmm. And actually, it took me quite a few years to realize it, to be conscious of the fact that I love music and I want to be a musician, because it's like it's like a second nature is in life, you know. Also, the interaction with some of, like you said, the top musical life figures, you know, Zubin Mehta, Isaac Perlman. I mean, all these people, Daniel Barenboim, they also came to our house and, you know, sometimes even made music, together there at home. It was just a real basic experience in classical music, which then came out of me later, mm-hmm. you know, when I became conscious of what I really want to do. Yeah,
very fortunate to have those kind of people around you when you're growing up. Is there anyone in particular, other than your father, obviously, was a big influence? Anyone other than your father growing up that was a big influence musically?
Sure. I have a few, but my father is obviously predominant because. But funnily enough, I have to mention that because a lot of people would think, wow, there's such a father, you know. My father didn't want me to become a musician.
No,
it's actually, he said, the family myth goes that when I was 5 years old, you know, when usually kids are given their first instruments, 5, mm-hmm. 6, 7. So he gave me a violin in the hand and kind of tried me out for a lesson or two and said, okay, you're talented, but it's better you go and play football with your friends because music is not a good profession. And, uh-huh. you know, he, of course, he worked very hard being a concert master. So it took my own initiative quite a few years later when I was like 11, 12 to say I want to play the piano mm-hmm. because some of my friends in school played piano. So it was, as I said, the experience was unconscious. You know, it wasn't really a conscious experience. Okay, you are starting to play an instrument and you become a musician. It wasn't like this and the same thing happened with conducting later on, because I was playing the piano for many years, thinking of becoming a professional pianist, but then realized that it was kind of a lonely experience, you know, and I became more and more fascinated with conducting, but it wasn't indirect. It wasn't a direct continuation from my childhood experience, like what you was sort of implied before. It was an indirect awareness suddenly
So when did you first take up conducting? And was
when
it
I was
university?
24, university. I was already studying piano in London at the Guildhall School of Music, and then I started being interested in conducting. And this is where the next real influence, what you asked me before, the next real influence was there was a very famous Romanian conductor last century, was named Celibidache.
Mm-hmm.
He was the conductor of the Munich Philharmonic at that time, at the end of his life. And my father was a real admirer of his. They worked together in the 50s, 60s in Israel with Israel Philharmonic. And he said, if you want to study conducting, well, that's really the person where you have to go and listen to rehearsals to. And then from then on, there I also met Daniel Barenboim, and together with him, then he invited me to come to the Chicago Symphony to be the associate conductor there.
Yeah.
So that's how it kind of developed.
That's amazing. Great beginning to your career, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of your first jobs with Barenboim, with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra? That was your first
job.
as associate conductor,
of
correct?
Chicago Symphony was my first job.
With Daniel Barenboim.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How was it studying under him? That's got to be another amazing experience.
Intense. Very intense, yeah. I mean, we stayed very good friends. We were up to date, you know, like you said, he comes and plays with me every now and then, and we talk very often. Great inspiration, and not only music, but also, I mean, what he has managed to do in his life. For example, the Divan Orchestra, the East-Western Divan, with the Israelis and Palestinians and Arabs. I mean, it's just incredible vision, and very, very fine, obviously fine, genius musician. So I feel very privileged to have been able to work with him over the years.
And you're going to step off a little bit from talking about your wife is also a performer, correct?
Absolutely, my wife.
We don't want to forget talking about her. I mean,
That's
she must
true.
have got to be some
and
influence.
my kids also.
And your kids.
No, but my wife is. I was about to say that as well, because when I went to listen to rehearsals with this old Romanian conductor, Celibidache.
There's a love story here. I can sense it coming on.
That was it, you know. Instead of concentrating on him, I concentrated on one of the violinists who happened to be become my wife. So
wow,
that was very fortunate. Yeah.
And you do record some stuff together as well with her, or perform together?
We perform together. We perform chamber music together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now you've been in Spain, in Valencia since, or Valencia, as I should properly pronounce it.
The Spaniards say Valencia. That's
yes,
true.
My wife's from South America, so Valencia, Valencia, and so you've been there since 2005,
right?
Conducting the Valencia Orchestra. What's it like? What's the audience like in Spain? Tell us about your experiences in Spain so far.
I don't know if the Spaniards are very different, you know, one from another, because they're different folks, also different tradition. Mm-hmm. The tradition in Valencia is extremely rich in music, because they have this the tradition of the music bands. So all the villages and towns would have like one or two really big music bands, like wind bands of over 100 people. You know, they're very passionate about it, and they even fight with each other. I mean, it's a really funny tradition. Mm-hmm. But that, of course, enriches the general love for music in the region, in the province of Valencia. So our audience is very dedicated. We also, apart from, I mean, it's like a music center, the building. So we also have the orchestra, but we also invite guest orchestras. So our audience gets to hear over 50 different concerts, programs every year with some of the finest orchestras and soloists in the world. So
yeah, I know. I'm looking ahead. Even Lang Lang is coming to, I think, in Valencia.
On a yearly basis.
Yeah, sold out. I noticed it was sold out. I was looking for tickets. I just couldn't get in.
You checked our ticket sales.
I did.
Wow.
I was kind of curious about that.
That is impressive. That's true.
So yeah, you get some great artists coming through there. Yeah. So when you meet, this is your first time Canada in Winnipeg. When you meet an orchestra for the first time, all right, let me just mention, I'm in the studio with Yaron Traub. He's born in Israel. He now lives in Spain, conducting the Valencia Symphony Orchestra. He's in town with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra for their Evening of Masters. When you meet an orchestra for the first time, how is it? How do you develop a relationship in such a short time? What are the things that you aim to do, and within 3-4 days that you have access to an orchestra?
Well, the lucky thing for us musicians is we have a common language. You know, we speak the language of music. Mm-hmm. And the pieces we play a repertoire that is more or less familiar. On rare occasions, we would play something that is totally unknown. So even if the specific symphony, let's say, has not been played for a few years, the language is totally familiar. So we can immediately start we immediately start to communicate, so to speak, on a very subtle level. And the gestures of the conductor are also universally accepted everywhere. I travel to China, where, for example, I don't have a language.
It's the notes on the paper.
So no talking in a way. It's just good morning, and they kind of figure out that this is what I'm saying is good morning. And then I say the name of the composer, and then we start playing. And it works. It works. We put up good concerts. So it's very interesting. The language of music. This is why the whole concept, what I mentioned before, of Barenboim with the East-Western Divan, the whole concept there is the communication through music as opposed to communication through words. That is always so complicated because of all the underlying feelings, heritage, and all this. But the music is a bringing together language.
So just give us a brief synopsis about the concert tonight, what we can expect, and what you might bring to the Mozart and the Brahms and the Schumann.
Right. I mean, the title is wonderful because it's really these masters. They're really the masters. Often today, I say that we have like a complex, in programming, because I do a lot of programming. So we think, we have to bring in something unusual,
obscure,
different. We have to educate our bodies. But there you go. You have a program like, you would go to a restaurant and you would order your favorite 3 dishes. You eat nothing for health and nothing for whatever for your grandmother. No, you really want your best. So this is like this concert, you really have 3 gorgeous pieces, each one in its own way. Obviously, Brahms and Schumann are very related, also historically with their story, but also the music is beautiful. And Mozart is just played by a wonderful soloist of the orchestra, Alex, and she's a wonderful bassoonist playing the Mozart bassoon concerto. So it's just a gorgeous program.
Well, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, and it's probably a tough question, maybe not, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if you were to look back on your life so far and all the people that you've met, are there any highlights that stand out? I mean, again, you've mentioned so many people that you would have met through your father and through the symphony orchestras and everywhere you've traveled. Do you have any highlights, or is that too tough of a question?
I definitely have quite a few, but I think I might be surprising you, but the person that I think of as privileged to have met is not a musician. He's a Zen master, a Buddhist Zen master named Thich Nhat Hanh.
Oh yes.
He's very well known in North America also. Vietnamese. He's now 90, and I've been visiting his center with a family every summer in France, and we feel very privileged to have been able to absorb some of his wisdom and about life, things Buddhism, but it's not a sense of a religion, but it's a sense of how to, you live your daily life, and it's a great privilege.
Wow, you did surprise me, and I'm sure you surprised our listener. That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah, actually, I'm quite intrigued. Maybe we'll talk more about that at some other point.
Whenever, sure.
Yaron, a pleasure to have met you.
Thank you.
And again, welcome to Winnipeg, welcome to Canada, and looking forward to the concert this weekend. It's with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. You're welcome back anytime.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Anytime. Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra tonight and tomorrow night. It's called An Evening of Masters, music of Mozart, Brahms, and Schumann. Guest conductor, as I mentioned, first time here in our country. This is Yaron Traub. I've been chatting with him. Go to WSO.ca for information about the show and see if there's any tickets left. Don't miss it. It's going to be a great performance.